In this vlog, I'm going to be a little bit more serious than I have been in some of my other vlogs because this is a topic that is important to me. Which is safer, plastic cutting boards or wooden cutting boards? This came up for a couple of reasons. One is fairly recently someone, a troll, left a comment on one of my cooking videos on my other cooking channel, my other YouTube channel. It's a cooking channel, Mobile Home Gourmet. And he said something negative about the fact that I was using a wooden cutting board on which I was cutting up raw fish. And I responded basically saying, no, you're stupid, and here's the research. And I put in a link to this research article. This was something that was done by the University of California, Davis Food Safety Laboratory. They tested cutting boards. The other thing that came up, the second one, was I was watching a TV show, one of America's test kitchen shows, and they were using a plastic cutting board. And that cutting board was pristine. It looked brand new, white, no marks on it at all. Very different from the cutting boards that we had in an Italian cooking course that I took for 9 months. We had cutting boards there, plastic ones. And the center area of the cutting board had this gray film inside the board, like it had been spray painted or something, a light to medium gray. The outside of the board was all white, but the inside was all gray, and I knew what that was. That was bacteria. And I wondered how dangerous these boards were that we were using. Many years ago, many years ago, like 30, 40 years ago, I read an article. I remember reading an article in a magazine where they said if you're going to use cutting boards, use wood cutting boards rather than plastic. And the way the article explained it was that we humans, we have the ability to fight off infections. Not everything. Sometimes we need antibiotics, and even then, some of us don't need all that many of them. For example, my mom worked for a doctor. I had a twin brother and a sister, and if either of them or both had strep throat, my mom would haul me into the doctor and have me tested too, and I would test positive. So I had to take penicillin as well, and I'm like, why do I have to take these pills, Mom? I don't have a sore throat. No, you don't have a sore throat. You have strep throat, though. I asked a doctor about it many years ago, and he said it was because my body has a natural ability to fight off, evidently, the Streptococcus bacteria. But not everything. Like I came out of the hospital a few years ago, some minor surgery, and about a week or two later, I knew something was wrong. I could tell I wasn't well. I went to my regular doctor, and I said, something isn't right. I feel like I might have a bladder infection or something. He took a sample and tested it there in their own lab, and he said, yeah, you've got an infection. We're going to put you on these antibiotics, take these home, and then meanwhile we're going to send the specimen to a laboratory, and then we'll let you know further. He called me the following day. Your lab results came back. Stop taking the antibiotic that I gave you. Go to the pharmacist. On your way home, I have called in a new prescription for you. You have staph infection. He was concerned, and rightly so, because I know some people, like the one person I know, he nearly died from staph infection. He was in intensive care. They saved him, but he struggled with staph. I got through it fine. I just took the prescription the doctor gave me. That was all I had to do. Anyways, cutting boards. Trees they don't have the circulatory system we have. They don't have the white blood cells that we have, the antibodies. So they have this over thousands of years, millions of years of evolution, survival of the fittest. They have come up with a way of making an antibacterial agent right in the wood. It's part of the fibers of the wood. And that's how the trees protect themselves. After the tree is cut down, harvested, the wood is cut up for 2x4s in your home or making wooden furniture or cutting boards. That antibacterial agent is still there. The wood is dead, but the agent is still there because it's part of the fibers of the wood. So what they did here in this study was they were contacted. The U.S. Department of Agriculture told us they had no scientific evidence to support their recommendation that plastic rather than wooden cutting boards be used in home kitchens. So they put them to the test, plastic and wood cutting boards. And this is the result of their testing. And how they did that was that they contaminated the surface of cutting boards with common food bacteria like E. coli and Salmonella. And then they would clean the boards in standard home cleaning processes. Either in a sink, you wash it, sponge or a cloth, soap and water, or you put it through your home dishwasher, your automatic dishwasher. And then they would test the surface to see how much bacteria was still on the surface. There was no difference between new cutting boards and new plastic cutting boards. Both were perfectly safe. They cleaned up exactly the way they hoped that they would, safe. The problem was used boards. They tested used boards that have been used for a while, so they have knife scores in them, they have scratches, surface has been roughed. They found that in the plastic cutting boards, the bacteria would get in there, stay in there, multiply, and washing wouldn't get it out. Same was true of wooden cutting boards, but in wood boards, the bacteria would not multiply, and over time it would disappear. It would be killed by the wood, by those antibacterial agents in the wood cutting board. So their recommendation is don't use plastic cutting boards. They're perfectly safe when they're brand new. That's why the stores can sell them. There's nothing wrong with them when they're brand new, but the more they get used, the more they get scratched and cut, the more places there are for the bacteria to harbor and multiply. They quoted other study on here that said that people who use plastic cutting boards, used plastic cutting boards, were more likely to be made sick, were twice as likely to be made sick by food prepared on that cutting board, those plastic cutting boards, than just the average incidence of people getting sick in the general population. Twice as likely to get sick. Whereas people who used wooden cutting boards, they were less than half as likely to be made sick by that food than just the regular normal rate of sickness in the population at large. So to me, the conclusions were pretty clear that if you want to use a plastic cutting board, it's fine when it's new, but as it gets scratched and scored with knife cuts, toss it out and replace it. If you're going to replace plastic cutting boards, it's better to buy wood and get a good quality wood cutting board, not a piece of plywood. Get a nice, firm, tightly grained cutting board like maple, for example. Yeah, they're expensive, but how valuable is your health? I have many cutting boards here. Oh, and by the way, I have some bamboo. Same thing. They're safe because the bamboo has that antibacterial agent in it. I use some for everyday cooking. There's some that I have set aside only for using in my videos because I want them to stay looking nice. I have some that are, I call them my show boards. I really take them out. If I'm going to be having people over for dinner and I need to carve something at the table, I have those nice, really pristine cutting boards. One more thing about wooden cutting boards is they do have to be oiled. Don't use a regular kind of a vegetable-based oil, whether it's olive oil, corn oil, vegetable oil. I know one person who insists on using walnut oil. The problem with those oils is they get rancid after a while. And once an oil turns rancid in the board is ruined. It's going to be replaced. Use mineral oil. Sounds kind of odd, but it's called USP grade mineral oil. It's meant to be ingested. People use it for laxatives. That oil does not go rancid. Oil your boards often. Oil them a lot when they're brand new and like wait 24 hours. Put a good coating of oil on it, let it all soak in, and then every once in a while, when the board looks like it might need it, it starts to get a little bit of a lighter shade to it, oil it again, let it soak in, wipe it off with paper towels. The oil will protect the wood and prevent some food, liquids, juices from getting into the fiber. That reduces the probability of bacteria even more. But you want to use like a good quality USP mineral oil. Avoid vegetable-based oils. If you're going to be cooking food for yourself or your family, you might as well be as safe as possible. And I know people who will bleach all their surfaces in their kitchen after they've cooked chicken, but they're still using a plastic cutting board. It's almost like they're defeating the purpose. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, is use wood rather than plastic cutting boards if you want to be safer in your kitchen.